Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our special program that we're going to be doing over many weeks, many years, and God knows how long it's going to take. But we're going to be working this through, and it is today something I've been trying to do for the last 5, 6 years, and it's finally happened. Admiral Greg said yes. Admiral Liz said yes, and
I'm Baltar.
oh, you would be Baltar. I thought it would be more me, but that's okay. That is really cool. Folks, today is December 8th, 2023. It is exactly the 20th anniversary to what many called at the time the reimagining to a sci-fi opus, a classic series, whatever you want to call it, but it was Battlestar Galactica, was redone by Ronald D. Moore and David Icke, and it was directed by Michael Reimer. It was a well, some people would call it was a 4-hour window, but it's really a 3-hour two-part episode. And it was a backdoor to a series. We all know what happened. It was picked up and the series was in 2005, but the miniseries was today on December 8th, 20 or 2003. And folks, let's be real. It was days, for lack of a better word. I know 2 years separated, but Battlestar Galactica, the miniseries, was in the shadow of 9/11. And there was a lot of
Yeah.
comparison, talk, and stuff about that. But without getting into historical stuff or political stuff, I just wanted to set that out there. We need to remember when this series debuted. Many people actually tuned out after the first hour, after we see the actual attack on the colonies, because 9/11 was so raw in the mind of many people. But if you listen to Ronald Moore, they lost most of the audience when Sex looked at the little baby, and you know what happened, right? Yep. She broke the baby's neck. Oh my god. And and Ronald D. Moore said our numbers dropped like a rock. He did that in the commentary for the miniseries.
That
But
was rough, but I kept watching.
oh yeah, it was very rough. But folks, I don't know. Did you guys get a chance? I know of all the things I'm going to be talking about, folks.
Well,
Today
of
we're going to
all
be
the
talking
things you're
about the
going to be
miniseries.
laughing about.
Yeah, I know, huh? I know.
Yeah, that
I shouldn't have been.
we're just sick.
Okay. We are going to be talking about Battlestar Galactica, the miniseries. I don't know where I was going with this, but I do want to let you know, all kidding aside, we're going to be doing the miniseries today only because it's the anniversary. Greg and I have not had much of a chance to talk about it. It's more of my fault. Liz, yes, and Liz is going to be in on it as well. I thank you. I don't think that future episodes are going to be devoted to one episode. This Battlestar Galactica is history now. It's not brand new. So there's a lot of stuff that the world has seen it. So for us to talk about it as, you know, a weekly series, it probably wouldn't be very good. But
Well, if
we
we did
do
it that way, we've got
years.
2 years of Caprica, 1 year of
We'd still be
Caprica.
looking for the 13th colony.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've
that's
got
very funny.
4 seasons plus 2 seasons plus 2 seasons. That's 8. Yeah, we'd never get through it.
Yeah, yeah, we never would. That's what I alluded to earlier. It'd be a multi-year project. But we are starting today and we're going to get into it. Now, bear with us. I believe when our next episode and my co-hosts, we're all going to be coming together for a day to choose whatever's convenient for us and our audience. But we're probably going to switch to the original series, and that would be the 3-hour pilot. And we would do the original series. I think I don't know if we're going to handle the movie separately. The 1979 movie, I believe it was, of the original series. A lot of people don't know that the 3-hour miniseries, there was a movie that was in the theaters, and it actually was different from the series. So I don't know if we're going to handle that separately, if we're even going to talk about it. But I'm figuring that we're going to do the original series. Then we're going to do Galactica 1980.
That'll
we
be one
Must
night.
we?
Yeah, I guess we all
Uh,
saw it. We did. And then we're of course going to tangentially refer to the miniseries again, and then we are into the series, and then we'll do the plan, or no, I'm sorry, Razor, which was in between the third and fourth season, and then the shorts that they did. I believe there was 12 of them, but we're not going to spend one episode on each. Greg had suggested we could do anywhere from 2 to 4 episodes per episode. I don't know. It's where the conversation takes us and where we're planning. So I just had to get that out of the way. It is not my official decision. I'm just alluding to you that it is still nurturing with us as well. So
But we
I
did know
want,
we were doing the reimagined miniseries tonight on the
yeah,
20th
and unfortunately,
anniversary.
that's all I told my co-hosts because I ran out of time over the last 2 weeks, and it was just embarrassing, and I won't even get into additional details. But
So,
it's
Roger, do you
tell me, yes.
remember where you were and what you were doing 20 years ago on Monday, December the 8th?
Marvelous question. Greg, I was pissed off because we had a power loss in the neighborhood. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. I could not see it. I was so disappointed. And there was a whole different world back then. Remember it, it just, I realized that it was, I think we were out of power for like 6 hours. I mean, it was all done. So I missed out on it. And when the second episode debuted the following day, I was like, well, I haven't seen the first episode. So I actually put it off until I was finally able to see it in rerun. And I forget how soon after it I think it was a few weeks
Sci-Fi
after.
Channel used to be really good about encore and stuff, as I
Yes.
recall.
So I didn't see it immediately, but when I finally did on the encore, I appreciate the question. I was a stupid Battlestar Galactica fan because I was like a Star Trek TOS fan. You cannot have Star Trek without Lauren Green, Richard Hatch, and all those guys. But Battlestar Galactica meant a great deal to me. My mama didn't want me watching that series in 1978 because I was 9 years old. She said that program is for adults. And I'm holding on to the TV channel as she's telling me.
how,
So
okay,
go
how did she
figure
explain
that.
Boxy to you?
I'm,
How
I'm
did
sorry.
she explain Boxy to you then?
No,
If it's for adults, how did she explain Boxy?
all she knew is the time that it was on and the rating that it had. And she said, that's for adults.
Ah,
She never
okay.
actually stopped me from watching it. She never did. So in 2003, when I saw this, I went in. I I knew it was different. So I was like, okay, let's see what they've done. What does reimagining mean? Remember? Who knew what a
Mhm.
reimagining meant? And when I finally saw it all the way through, there were moments of reliving what had happened 2 years before. It felt real. I really believe the original attack on site was worse, quite frankly, than this one, than the 2003 version. I mean, they were brutal when the Cylons attacked Caprica. When the flag went up in flames and all that stuff. I mean, there was some brutal imagery. But I hope I'm not belaboring it, Greg, any more than I should. I was open, and even though I wouldn't admit it, I was excited. I wanted to see it. I did. But I was like, what about my Battlestar Galactica? So let me turn it around, Greg. Let me ask you that question. That was a great question. I appreciate that, brother.
Oh well, I was working full time. I was back to school to finish my BS, and crammed over the weekend so I wouldn't have to do homework, so I could watch it.
That is cool. That is cool. Were
Uh,
you married at the time?
I was. I
Okay,
was.
as was I, and I already had kids.
Yep. Yes. Also had. Yep. Um, so just to expand like you did, I actually wasn't thrilled with the miniseries. I thought it was slow. I
Oh,
thought it was overly dramatized. Compare. I had expectations a lot like yours of the original. There was things about it I absolutely adored, which we can get into in a little bit. But the for the most part, I, I'm like, this isn't going to sell. We'll never see a series.
oh, okay. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so that was my first impression of it. I watched both nights. The look of it was gorgeous. The music was awesome. The casting was fantastic. But storytelling, it was boring.
Allow me to add, I didn't know it was going to go to a series. I had no idea. I just knew it was a mini series. I guess in the back of my mind, maybe it could lead to a series, but I had no idea. So that was interesting, Craig. You heard me. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Liz, what about you?
Yeah.
Um, I was working full time when it aired. Plus, we had two young children in the house, so I was kind of busy with that. So I had recorded it, and when I got the chance to watch it, at first I was like, Greg, this just isn't cutting it for me because I'm such a fanatic with the original. But later on, rewatching it, and maybe I was in a different mindset, I was like, this is really good. And actually, they picked out a lot of things from the original that I didn't catch the first time through. And granted, this was all years ago. So when, we did it to rewatch, I was catching things that I'd caught through the second watch through. I'm like, okay, I was right the second time, not the first time. This actually is pretty decent.
You know, I didn't know what to expect, genuinely. And I was open to the story. In a way, I was happy that it didn't follow the original series. It wasn't this wasn't Casablanca being redone. This is a TV series that took place, and I knew about Starbuck. I was like, okay, fine. Is she cute? That's all I want to know. And she was cute enough for me. Forgive me. And there were a few other characters that were just as cute, and if not, flat out attractive. Uh, I was excited to watch that, but I did have to say that I did enjoy the series. I wasn't expecting a series to follow, but I was in. There was some imagery that did disgust me early on about what Six did. And then being the type of individual that I am, when things are starting to happen, it's starting to happen on a large canvas. And I get what you're telling me, Greg, on how it's moved slow, but it was deliberate to not be the same as the other one.
Oh,
So
definitely. It was
yeah,
definitely a modern storytelling, and
and
still is. I mean,
oh
it's
yeah.
probably set the groundwork for these epic serialized stories.
And that's another thing. Yes, I remember when Rolling Stone referred to it as the best program you're not watching right now. That
Yeah, I
that was
remember that
actually
too.
high praise. Remember that? And I think that's what put the series out to a lot of other people that didn't know about it. So, in this series, the scenes that really irked me was things are really starting to go down, and the Battlestar Galactica fleet, the Viper Squadron, is headed back towards Earth, and they discover that they're being tracked, and it's a whole squadron of Cylon raiders. And then they break through the noise, and it turns out it's only two. Like, okay, boys, we know what's going on. Let's take these SOBs out. And we see what happens. And it was distressing that they just chewed up without having an opportunity. It was horrible. It was horrible getting the reports. And I think it was just prior to that. Ronald D. Moore has a habit of telling stories where he takes moments of history. Now, when we look at Exodus Part 2, I did get a bit angry at a famous phrase that was used in the shipyard, and it's from history, and still a little ornery about it. But he takes a lot of history and he works it into a story. When they make the notice on the ship about the attack, I think it was sent in the open, just like it was in Pearl Harbor. And that was no accident. It was because they couldn't get, they talk about sunspots and all the things, whatever, the missions weren't getting through. But the United States military basically sent a transmission in the open. This is not a drill. This is real. There is an air attack in progress. I don't want to get into the conspiracy theory side of December 7th. No. I'm just saying there was a historical precedent, and Ronald D. Moore was starting to put his take on this new sci-fi series. There were other scenes. I I didn't know what to expect, but and I'm going to stop. I want to get to some of you guys now and some of your comments. But another scene that stood out was, oh, President Rosalind taking the oath right out of November 22nd, 1962. All right, it was well done, it was real, but shortly thereafter, when the fleet is beginning to get together and they're talking about what they have to do, and there was this specific camera view where Apollo was like, you have to make your decision. They've tracked us. When they show up, it's going to be over in seconds. And the camera is spinning, spinning, and it finally closes in on Rosalind. And it was so claustrophobic. My head was spinning. I felt the pressures. What are you going to do? You have to run. And then what happens within a few seconds? The actual attack. Cylon Raiders. And they basically blow it. The survivors that don't have FTL. In the first half, it was very difficult. It was very heavy. And there are other things that stand out, but I want to go to my co host because I'm talking too much. Greg, so what are some of the things that stood out for you in the first half of the series or the first half of the miniseries?
So immediately, we'd already had other shows that used CG. Babylon 5 was one such example. Um, but immediately the cinematics stood out
Mm.
as new and unique. The very first scene, it was like a wing camera on the transport, and I'm like looking at that, and I was playing video games like X-Wing and Tie Fighter and these spacey flight sim type games on the computer, and I'm like, this is freaking awesome. The cinematics were just amazing. The new Centurions, when they came out, it's like they were 10 times more evil than the original ones looking. Um, Trisha Helfer, probably had like one of the best entrances in sci-fi in that first scene. Looking like $1,000,000 and just doing the catwalk right down that corridor, and the new base star. So like all of these things, like they were establishing that this was going to be different. This was going to have this brand new, amazing look. Um, and then she basically sacrifices herself. And what's up with that? We later learn that they can resurrect, but this was like nothing we ever seen before in serialized television.
You're right. And from the get go, and I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, the major failure on my part is that I did not have these images chosen. And we're going to be doing that moving forward. We're going to have the screen grabs, but I know it's very small. But here's one of the images right here that Greg was mentioning, the catwalk. You see the Cylons in the background. And I had a chance to interview this gentleman. Tiny bit of trivia, and I'm going to head on over to you, Liz, in a moment. That when they have this scene, which you all remember, he told us that he had a pack of quarters or a roll of quarters in his pocket because she reaches down, as he told us, and you had to hit your marks, right? He had a roll of quarters, and it changed the whole ambiance of the set. It was in one of our interviews. We'll have to get to it, but it was subtle. He was in
Oh
this scene.
my.
Yeah, and he had a roll of quarters in his pocket. And apparently she got the pocket, which it worked. They hit their mark. He was telling the story as if there was, a little bit of dirtiness to it. But no, the joke was it was in the pocket. She hit the pocket, which was really cool. It's a good story.
Do they put half
And
dollars in rolls?
I'm sorry, it was quarters. Did I say
No,
dollars?
I know. I'm asking if they put half dollars in rolls.
Oh, ooh, I like it. I like where you're thinking. Now, that was a scene, but at the very beginning, as Greg was talking about the camera, it was a colonial shuttle from the original series.
Yes.
As best.
Yep.
That was a wonderful homage. And
There was a
yeah,
lot of really good homages. I mean, I
yes.
didn't hate it. I mean, it just, the pacing was rough with commercials.
I did appreciate that, he got a consulting producer spot, Glenn A. Larson, on it. But after the opening, and you had a brand new title, the title card, Battlestar Galactica, then you had the music, and then we see they're aboard an aircraft carrier. Because Ronald D. Moore said, and I did hear the recordings of all of them, he said he wanted this program to be life, normal life aboard an aircraft carrier. That was his goal in this story. So we mentioned a few scenes. I'm going to come back to Greg, but right now, Liz, you haven't said anything. I'm sorry, and that's more me than anything
Oh
else.
no, no. I've been listening to you guys. Actually, one of the scenes that really got me was almost at the very beginning, other than what you already had talked about with the catwalk, and that was awesome. I mean, the red dress, the heels, she
Oh
nailed
yeah,
it.
Oh yeah,
But I'm a girl and I was drooling. Let's put it that way.
right.
Um, the one of the ones caught me was when Laura Roslin was at the doctor's office, and
Yeah.
it caught me in it caught me in two different ways. One, because it was so powerful and impactful on her and what was going on in her life, which actually plays a little bit later as to, here the entire world is ending and I'm worried about myself. I don't know if you remember that part when they were back on the shuttle.
yes,
But I don't know. Did you guys happen to notice what flew by the window in the doctor's office?
yes. I thank you. I was about to say that. I'm going to give you the
I
second
remember.
one, but the first one was a Battlestar, which looked not unlike the Pegasus. Okay, that's the first one that starts at the upper part of the
Hmm.
screen and moves across. But thank you. What was the second one, Liz?
The Serenity.
Did you know that, Greg?
No.
No, it is, brother.
Yes,
The Serenity.
it's there.
Oh, I
Yes.
had to unplug my DVD player for the camera.
Yeah, isn't
Oh.
it funny? Yeah, way to
Oh.
go, Liz. Folks, you're going to get a lot of information on this series as we move along. We're going to miss some of it. A lot of it is my fault, and I apologize,
Good
but we are
eagle
going to move
eye.
forward. We have quite a few people watching us. Folks, let us know who you are and where you hail from. But a little bit of trivia. When she is in the doctor's office, you see a few ships in the background, and you see a battle star go across, and I believe it goes from left to right, and the Serenity is in the opposite direction, right, Liz? I
Correct.
believe it goes right to left. Yes.
Yeah, I actually had to hold out my hand and visualize the scene. But yeah, Pegasus is left to right. Serenity goes back the opposite way.
I did love Starbucks still. Had a stogie in her mouth. I was okay with that. And she has it out
Perfect
with
homage to Dirk.
yes. And she has it out with Commander Kane. Or I'm sorry, Colonel
Tie.
Ty. Colonel Ty.
Hi.
And let me tell you, boy, did these people have talent in choosing the talent to be on this series. Think of all the people that they've chosen and what they've all gone on to do now. Now, I understand that Colonel Ty has had some medical issues as of late, but I don't know about you, Greg. I appreciated the imperfections. They were all imperfect, but Colonel Ty, dude, when the stuff was on the line, that was your guy. I did like Colonel Ty, but he was a drunk. He had problems. As a matter of fact, at the very beginning, when the camera's going all over the place, he's taking a hit, and Gaeta goes up to it's Gaeta, but whatever. Gaeta goes up to him and hears the reports from the midwatch, and he was taking a drink right then and there. This was cool. That Starbuck wouldn't take his crap. I loved her lines about how's the wife.
Mm, that was a
you know,
dig.
oh, it was really good. This the Greg, we talked about this in another series, and it's the universe that they're building. They did an incredible amount of universe building in the first 20 minutes of this miniseries. It
Yes.
was really well done. But yes, did it run slow? Yes, it did. But I got to tell you, this was really good stuff. Um, when and Liz, please, there's other scenes that you have, of course. I'm talking too much because I'm nervous.
Oh,
What
why are you
what
nervous?
because I've been wanting to do this program for about 6, 7 years now. I'm finally here,
Uh,
and I did it all wrong.
um,
Yeah.
when I rewatched it without seeing the first half, the second half. I saw it all together. So
Yes,
if I'm jumping slightly ahead, I
that's okay.
apologize. But one of the scenes that got me was um back when they had the engine trouble and crash, and all the people are coming at them, and then they're pulling numbers to see who gets on and who doesn't. I think that's a very I'm not quite sure what the term is I want to use for it, but it was extremely powerful to the fact that they're realizing so many people are going to not make it. And you can only literally take three people. It's just, it hits hard.
Yeah. And they were like clinging to the ship as they were trying to take off,
Oh, and
and then they were
I
like
know that,
filming what like Boomer could see, as she's looking down at the people that were left behind, and yeah,
her partner too, that was a hard one.
and he
But
yeah, because he was
when,
down there with them to make room for
yeah,
Gaius Baltar. Yeah, it was
yeah,
definitely
you, you,
one that was actually one of
I
the
don't
things I
know.
noted about the modern storytelling.
Yeah. And granted, this was done 20 years ago, but to me, when I rewatched it here recently, seeing that one person try to jump on the shuttle reminded me so much of our pullout. And I don't want to get, political with it, but
Right.
it's almost like history reversed. It's like if the political issues that we had and the pullout that we had in Afghanistan had been in 2003, that scene could have almost been based on it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
it does.
I thought that scene, and yes, it stood out. I mean, folks, the miniseries is by no means fun. There is almost no humor in this. It is humorless. There's sarcasm in the series, but it is rough. It painted a dark image. It was a child of its time, and in many ways, it's a
Yeah.
child still of its time. And the images it painted were rough, and I appreciated the strong storytelling. When the Raptor takes off, I was envisioning 1975 Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
That's the imagery that
Exactly.
I got that from. And it's not exactly correct, but yes, the guy that comes up to me says, "I'll give you 10,000 cubits or 100,000." Yes,
Yeah. Take my. Did you hear that one that yelled, "Take my nephew! Take my nephew!" And literally,
yeah.
that's what I was envisioning as well. It was like, okay, it's incredible writing and storytelling to incorporate all of these things.
The first Star Trek joke was in that scene. where they're calling the numbers and they say, "Who gets to decide who?" She says, "No,
Yeah.
lottery." And then the lady who is chosen, she has her glasses up here, and he's talking to Baltar. Says, "Do you? I can't find my glasses." And Baltar's already as a character and as a actor. He's like looking at the glasses, and he's looking at her, and it's like, yeah, whatever. And the number that was called, of course, the connection to Star Trek was number 47, of course.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh, hey, aren't you guys Boltar?" I didn't do anything. The Boltar that we know is there. Self-preservation.
And much different than Colicos's Baltar.
Oh yeah, yes,
But he actually became, in his chaotic neutral. I wouldn't say evil, but in his character, I mean, he actually became quite comic at times.
yes, and I had no problem. We're going to talk about an incredible character growth, and that was the Baltar character. Oh my God, from where he started to where he ended. Now, when the attack is ongoing, he realizes something's up. And of course, he's in denial when he tells Six, "Hey, I had nothing to do with any of that." He goes, "Oh, yes, you did. You gave me full access. And now it's you. And look at you. You're trying to think of ways on how to get out of this. You gave up the colonies, Baltar."
Well,
And
the thing is there are so many checks and balances in defense security, and there had to be so many systems that fell apart to allow that to happen.
yes,
So
Well, how do we
looking
know how
back,
many Cylons weren't implanted already
right,
to allow that?
right. Well,
yeah,
we do know she met somebody. We couldn't see who, because obviously they hadn't cast all the other Cylon models yet. But we know that she'd met with somebody on Caprica at that time. I think later we learn through
in the
one of
plan.
Laura Roslind's fever dreams who it was. Um, I don't remember if it was Dean Stockwell or not, but
Yes.
It was
we
Dina.
um, so we've yes, possibly we were more involved, but oh my god, that was like looking back at it, it was like that was one of the most you know I'm just you um, from working in defense, and Liz, you served in the Navy. Um, that was one of the most cringy things about the show is that that was able to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, she was able to get into that, and then we see the images of all the nuclear bombs going off. It was absolutely horrible, and um, his house was taken out by a nuclear bomb. And when he's escaping to the countryside, and he meets up with Sharon, and oh my goodness,
Halo.
Halo, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't remember it either when I was talking
Yeah,
about it.
we see these paths crossing, and Boltar lucks out. He gets to be on because Hilo says, "What? Who am I? If we have a chance, that's the guy that's going to help us fight back."
Yep.
Hilo was already looking ahead. It would. I mean, that guy says, "Hey, this isn't over. If we're going to fight back, it's going to be with people like him." And sure enough, and he did have stuff to do with it. But it started off with the traitor that did them all in, that was responsible for billions of lives, is one that got away himself. And yeah, that was a major scene. After the attack has begun and he's watching the news, and you see people reporting, and one by one, as the nuclear bomb hits, they're wiped off the screen. It's unreal. It had the imagery from V. I don't know, for those of you who have seen V,
Mm-hmm.
that scene where they're about to get news out, and then
Yep.
it goes dark, and then we have the symbol of the visitors. It was like that. It was not unlike, for those of you that remember, October 18th, 1989. You're watching the recap of Game 2 of the World Series. and all of a sudden you get snows and shadows, and the screen was yanked away. I'm not trying to
Yep.
compare an earthquake to this, but we've seen that stuff. We've seen how it happens, and it looked real. And the imagery was rough. It was ugly. It was horrible.
Impactful.
Impactful. Yes, Greg. Thank you. The whole idea that humanity is coming to an end, and it's just absolutely horrid. I go back to that scene where Laura Roslin had to make the decision that they had to leave, and they were going to leave the other FTL ships behind. It was horrible. And then what Lee does shortly thereafter to save them, he uses those generators. Ronald D. Moore commented, he said, that's about as heavy techy technobabble he wanted to get, but I had written myself into the spot. I needed some way to get out of it. And those generators did it because Adama ordered. Oh, the conversation between Adama and Apollo was beautiful. Is confirmed. Yes, I confirm. I
Acknowledge
got your
message.
yeah.
Acknowledge.
I acknowledge receipt of message.
Yeah.
Oh my God! How many of you have written an email, folks, with that phrase?
Oh yeah.
I wrote an email with that phrase. I acknowledge receipt of message. Oh my God, Greg, you're
But
laughing at you
And I was
use it.
free,
tipping just as I was
free.
about to laugh.
Yes, yes. Tell me not. After that series and after you started watching, how many of you actually use that phrase in emails at work? I did. Probably more than one.
Well, culture has also shifted in the last 20 years. So,
Yes.
diversity, equity, and inclusion makes it, very difficult to be as direct as I would like to be sometimes.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I do have to actually consider things more thoughtfully.
In
Zoloft
other words, you
helps.
need to have a filter.
Zoloft helps.
Huh? What? Oh, jeez,
Yeah.
Greg. Jeez.
God, Greg, that's priceless.
Oh, it is. It is
I
priceless.
might have to try that. I might have to try that.
Yep,
Oh
it's
my
my
goodness.
little blue don't be a dick pill.
Oh my God.
Oh, at least it's one little blue pill.
Yep, yep.
You know,
Now I'm taking 2 of them, and the next ones are up to $100.
wow. There was the other image of the battle stars being shot up and Vipers being shot up. And we learn finally, because we know from the original series, there were 5 battle stars destroyed in the original series. One was
Yes.
Heck,
the
yeah.
Atlantia, the other one was the Columbia, and we didn't
Yeah.
know the names of the other 3. And then in this opening series, when Adama declares that Admiral Nagala is dead, as she was aboard the Battlestar Atlantia. Okay, we got that. And he mentions the Trident, the Pacifica, and I forget now the other one. In addition to the Columbia and the Atlantic, so we learn tangentially what were the original 5 Battlestars,
Yep.
which I
And
thought
there was
was
a
a
lot
cool
more
homage.
than those.
Yeah.
Because we also learned, that there were originally 12, one representing each of the 12 colonies.
Yes.
We learned that all the original 12 colonies kind of align with our zodiac, which I thought was a really neat
Yeah.
plot device. The names were changed slightly. Pisces became Pycon. Um, Sagittarius
Well,
was
that's.
Sagittaron.
But you got to think this is Battlestar Galactica as far as it's changing common terminology to just something slightly different. I mean,
Right,
look at frack, for God's sake. So, of course, they're
right.
going to slightly change the names.
Oh no, I know that, but I mean, I always, back even going back to the original, I thought that was really neat. And there's like even like some Egyptian overtones in the original too. That was kind of cool.
Yes.
Like the helmets and stuff like that. So I mean, the tie to mythology, I thought, has always attracted me to the show, even when I was like 10 years old. So yeah, and the religious themes of the original kind of escaped me at that age, but the religious themes in this one did not. So, and I was always,
Oh, the Seven Lords of Kobol.
well, the Lords of Kobol, and the monotheistic Cylons. It was always a
Oh, okay.
struggle for me to understand who are the good guys and who are the bad guys.
Hmm.
Um, it's like, the show was, is very heavy with Christian dogma, and the the you know the our heroes are all pagans. So that was, kind of interesting for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was for me
A-
as well. Go ahead.
And then
Sorry.
even at the end, I mean, we'll get there probably in a few months, but even at the end, it still wasn't clear. Because one of the next things we should probably talk about, we're talking about Gaius getting on the Raptor, is he starts seeing Six everywhere, but she's not there,
Yeah. Yeah.
or is she?
Well, I don't
Right.
think she's there because I think there is some way that she implanted, even though she was saying she was going to, she implanted something in his brain that's making him see her and feel her. Um, I mean, there was a couple very near sex scenes there. So it's,
Oh yes,
uh,
complete with light
y-
up spines.
yeah,
That's right.
I
Yes.
wasn't, I wasn't, I wasn't talking about the light up spine, but I mean afterwards, once if she physically isn't there, that he's still seeing her, like when they're trying to talk about a strategy or different things, and
Mm-hmm.
he's literally almost having a full on orgasm by himself.
Yes, when they're on the bridge. Or I'm sorry,
Yes.
when they're in combat. CIC, yes, the Combat Information Center. I gotta admit, that was so well done. I chuckled the first time I saw it, and every time. That is so well done. It's just him, and that it looks like she's there, but she's not. And then Gata goes right up to him. And oh my god, he just went through I guess the very vivid imagination. And he's flushed and he's right. You're right there, doctor. Oh yes, yes, yes. I'm all right. But yeah, that was crazy. Um, he starts to find his spot because he notices that thing that's on the console, which was in
Yeah.
her purse as well. What it was,
Right.
tracker, communication device, it doesn't matter. But Boltar starts to make his presence felt. And it was, but that's when they're already aboard the Galactica in part two now.
Yeah.
Um, I appreciated how Adama, when he realized what was going on, he says, okay, I'll be there. And he says, let's go do this, let's go do this. And or sorry, Saul Ty, some dude, it's a prank. They're screwing with you. It's a retirement party. He's like, nope, nope, this is real. And sure enough, the alarms go off. And after he makes the announcement of everything, what's his face on the deck? And the hangar deck says, this better be real. So I appreciated how, even though they had no bullets, they did. They had a little bit, and they were going to go ahead and do it. And they were readying for battle. And when they made the jump, remember, he says, "You're out of your mind. What's it been? 20 years since we've done a jump." He's like, "Yeah, well, we're going to do it. We've got to get to Ragnar Anchorage." So if I think he says if we're going to enter into a shooting, I don't. We need some bullets. So they make their way over there. And there's a lot that happened in the second part where Leoben, the character of Leoben, they find him at the Ragnar Anchorage. And I know I'm skipping over some other stuff, and I'm going to ask my co host to comment. But Adama figures it out. He knows it's either a spy or whatever, or he is even a Cylon because he starts to break down. And he refers to him when he figures it out. He says, I don't know what it is going through those silica pathways. of yours, but he figured it out pretty quick, and he kept his
Mm-hmm.
calm. And he has to tell Ty, and Ty doesn't believe him. But Ty is the officer, and he does, but you can tell he doesn't, which is kind of interesting when you think about what happens later on. But I don't want to get to that. Um, it was wonderful how the crew got to work, and they were loading everything. But as it is, once the fleet meets them there, they send Starbuck out to take a look, and the Cylons are there with two base stars. They've been cornered. Maybe not even cornered. They're in a hole. They're trapped. I'm going to jump a little further ahead, and I have to tell you that when it comes to space combat, folks, I think this is one of the better ones in its simplicity and the way it's done. I loved everyone understands when he's on the master display and he says, we're going to come out about 5 clicks. They come out here. They're going to come out behind us, and we're going to go, and they're going to make the jump, or we're going to provide cover. And when you see the Galactica going through the void, well, that the Ragnar cloud or whatever, and she takes up station, turns around, and all of the lingo, wow, it was perfect. Says, all right, activate the, do this, execute. Do this, execute. Ronald D. Moore was at his best writing this because he's an old Navy guy. So
Yeah.
his ability to get that language in there was great. I did appreciate all of that happened in that battle. Galactica came out. She formed a perimeter. The Vipers did their job while the fleet is jumping out. It was well done. It was executed almost flawlessly.
Oh, the cinematics still hold up.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, they were awesome.
I mean, it's so hard to explain how different this was. You know, the cameras were moving around. They were shaky. They cut between viewpoints really quickly. You know, it was like nothing seen before. And I mean, even with the most recent Star Wars films, they were still doing these, you know, big static shots of things going on. You know, you got a
I
few
would say it
cockpit
was.
shots, but go ahead, Liz. Sorry.
I would say it was. That's okay. I don't want to talk over you. Um, I would say instead of it being static, and yes, it was. It was more the older stuff was more flat screened or flat, whereas this was, granted, 3D really hadn't come completely into its own at this point. It was much more realistic, and it kind of popped up off the screen, and you saw a lot more motion all the way around than just okay, Star Wars and the different fight scenes that were going on with that, or even Star Trek with some of the different fight scenes that were going on.
Yeah.
This to me, and there is one in particular shot in that fight scene when the cannons start to pull back right before they fire and they come out, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yes.
holy crap, that is realistic.
Yep, like the old World War II footage of
Yes,
the big guns, you know,
big guns coming
and
out,
the
yeah, off
5 inches that
battleships.
we've
It was,
got now, and yeah,
yeah.
It
I mean,
was
that
so
blew me
cool.
away when I saw that.
Yeah, when the cannons come up, the 8 cannons, the primary ones, which if you look
Uh
at
huh.
other lore and stuff, the Galactica had like 4 banks of 8 cannons on top and 4 banks of on the bottom. A lot of the stuff had been removed, which if it was kind of interesting that there was more on there. Now, I know exactly the scene you're talking about when the cannons were firing and they followed the rounds all the way up where they exploded. It
Mm-hmm.
was cool to see that the Galactic was able to establish the perimeter and keep them away. But when the Vipers went out, in the first few seconds, the Vipers were getting chewed up. There was one scene where 2 Vipers, the Viper and his wingman, took out a Cylon Raider, and then 4 Vipers got wasted like in a second. These were not the Cylons from the original series. They were dangerous, they were killers, and a lot of humans are going to die.
and rather
These
than
were,
piloted craft, they were actually, you know, autonomous.
Yeah. There was a whole
bylaws.
different design to the Vipers, and yeah, they were
Yeah,
completely, like you said, basically they were their version of drones.
yeah. Well, if the drones had AI
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah. And
and
then
consciousness.
and when you say consciousness, we'll talk about Scar when Scar comes around.
Oh yeah, that we might spend that those 2 episodes we should probably spend just one night on because those
Oh,
those are really good episodes.
all right. And I agree. So I know I jumped way ahead on this. I love the scene right before where they're talking about what's going to happen, and Adama says, "No, we're gonna do this," and Saul ties, "So we're running." And then
yeah.
Apollo says, he's right." And then I love it how, oh my God, the communications officer, uh, Drusilla, I think her name was, I forget. She's talking to Rosalind's aide, and you can see that they're talking, and there's there's something between the two.
They need to make babies.
And then Saul
Sorry.
Ty, is that an order? It just might be. Got it, Greg. Thank you, Admiral. We'll be right back in a moment. I think Greg will comment about, because I know he's still listening to us. That was funny, but I loved Saul. Is that an order? That was funny, man. And he said, just may very well be, but they're talking about survival. Rosalind had actually gotten through to him.
Yeah.
He says, I don't know why I have to explain this to you. That was a very well done conversation, because he says, she's a school teacher, dude. And he insults her on every and any time he gets to insult her. And he has nothing for her. Nothing. And Adama was going to go out in a blaze of glory, basically. He didn't know what he was up against, but she got through to him, and she realized his number one priority is to defend humanity.
Like
Because
the war is over. But here,
yeah,
I I wanted to say something. The war is over, but like you said before, you got through to her. She got through to him. God, my terminology tonight terrible.
you're okay.
Um, but there was the whole issue of the fight, the tug of war of actually who did have power, because he is so focused mentality wise, military wise, he doesn't see everything else.
No,
One thing that got me is when he said, when they're having the conversation, so are we going to run? My thing is, you should have finished the actual sentence with it. No, we're not going to run. We're just going to run to fight another day.
oh, okay, yeah, I like that. I wasn't thinking about that. As we know, they began the new series where the Cylons were created by man, and they have a plan. And the music was way ahead, no doubt. Bear McCreary, phenomenal job on this series. I appreciate how he went away from the classical themes of the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. Of science fiction programs tend to have classical musical sets, and they went away from it. There was really good stuff. I had no problem with the music early on. I had to come to appreciate it. I didn't think it was the best thing there was, but we'll get to Exodus as to how good the music was, but that's later. And I was all right with it. I saw the series. There was a lot of stuff that these people had to go through in this opening miniseries, and it was hard. It was heavy, man. It was tough. And I was sold on it insofar as, wow, this is neat. This 4-hour miniseries, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it was good.
Well,
Liz, go.
I was going to say you wouldn't have two of the main outstanding characters if it wasn't for other people pushing for them actually to be on the show, or things that were written specifically for them to be on the show. I'm not sure if you're aware of the
Yes,
fact, but I never say her. What do you mean? Yes.
Richard Hatch, man.
Oh no, I wasn't talking about that. But yes, of course. But no, even with six, Trisha Heffler, um, she wasn't supposed to be on it. They kept pushing and pushing, and the person that kept pushing for her the most was actually Edward James Olmos.
Oh,
So I'm not
you know what?
sure if
That
you
I
knew
did
that or
not
not.
know. I did know that she had no experience. She was a model.
Model, yeah. So, and then of course, Lauren Roth. I can never say her last name right. Roslin, I believe, is the last name.
Yes.
Um, her role was written 100% for her.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, it was a character that
encouraged her to
wasn't in
come
the
on the show.
original.
Yeah, well, not only that, I loved her. I loved her acting from Dances with Wolves. So to see her in this other show, and then later to come to find out she was encouraged to be on the show simply because they were going to write the character for her, I'm like, I really kind of like that.
Oh, and she was phenomenal.
Yeah, as a matter of
Oh
fact,
yes, definitely.
Mary McDonnell. I was privileged, folks, that there is a theater here, the Paley Festival here in Los Angeles, and I was able to get tickets to see when Battlestar Galactic was on. I went there, the entire cast was there, but we got to see the upcoming episode on a big screen before it debuted, and then this crew was on. It was a Paley Festival, so you can check the time. It was a Wednesday or Thursday night, and the episode that we got to see was the episode of the election. Remember where Mary McDonnell is practicing the debate questions for the election,
Hmm.
and then she like
Yeah.
rips one up and drops it? We saw that episode on the big screen, and then the entire crew or the casting crew were there, which was really cool. So I was there for that, and we didn't get a chance, folks. I don't understand, and 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 if you're gonna disagree with me, Greg, Liz, I apologize to everyone else watching. I don't ever put someone into a role such as Professor Moriarty or Doc Brown. I don't think that's who he is forever. I don't see Montgomery Scott as Scotty forever. I see them for who they are, and that's it. Edward James Olmos. So many people told me when the whole series began, they either saw him from Miami Vice
Miami Vice.
or from, I believe was it Stand By Me, or is when he is the instructor of the school in East Los Angeles, where he's teaching these kids math, and people would imitate his voice and, well, I can't see him other than from Miami Vice. It's like, I always wanted to answer someone and say, are you really that narrow? You cannot
So
take the
here's
individual for who they are.
so
I
here's the thing. So are people now when they watch him in Mayans, are they now saying no? It's only I can only see him as Captain Adama.
which is kind of amusing now because he
Yeah.
assumed that role. Isn't it funny, Greg? Do you see that in some actors? Because I don't. And don't get me wrong, there's probably one or two that, yes, I can't see them as anything else. But
Kevin
I'll
Costner.
still, oh, who was that?
Kevin Costner.
Oh, and as who? Kevin Costner is who?
As Kevin Costner in everything.
Oh, oh, okay. I like that. All right, I appreciate that. Okay. Is there anyone yourself, Liz, that you just can't see them as anything else? You see them as
I
one
don't
thing, you
think
can't see
so.
anything. Because
I don't think so.
I remember the same Doc Brown. He was an incredible character in Taxi. Give me a break. He was Reverend Jim in Taxi, and people saw him in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and they're, oh, I see him as Reverend Jim. I don't have an answer to that. And it's like, okay, look, if you can't see beyond it, we'll never have a conversation. So, in the case of Edward James Olmos, Lauren
What about
Green.
the origami guy that was in Blade Runner?
Yeah,
Hmm.
there you go.
That was what I remembered him from.
Yeah, huh. Okay. I had
I
no.
think the reason. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I said, I
Go
think the
Liz.
reason I don't necessarily see as one particular person always in that role, it's like no matter what they do, I always associate with another. I think the reason I don't is simply because of the fact that I did so much acting, when I was younger and in college, and myself assumed different roles. And I wouldn't want people to look at me, playing a particular character on this particular theater project and always assume that's me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know,
All right.
long-winded.
No, 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 no. Stop it. I'm the
See,
long-winded
I
one.
liked. I liked this actor. I mean, when I saw him on Dexter, he was in one of he was the antagonist in one season of Dexter. It's
Oh yeah.
you got to see yet another dynamic of him. I've only seen one episode of Mayans, but you got to see another dynamic of him in that, and you know, I appreciated him as a Dom. I mean, I thought he was
Yeah.
fantastic. He was genuine. He had that commanding presence. But I didn't say, oh, that's the guy from whatever. It's from Blade Runner. Say, it's like, okay, here's this actor. I mean, there are actors that only play themselves, Kevin Costner. But you know, you know, someone like Mary McDonald, right? I adored her as President Rosalind. Much different character than the other role that I knew her for, which was the mother on Donnie Darko.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's you know, the script, the performance, the styling, you know, they all come together to make the character, regardless who's playing them.
Mary McDonald plays Laura Roslin. After that, we have Katie Sackhoff as Kara Starbuck Thrace. And another
She
thing we didn't
has
comment on.
done phenomenal
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. This was the first thing I had seen her in.
Yeah.
She's been in Star Wars now, as Bo-Katan. She's got another sci-fi show out there called Another Life that's really good. Really neat premise. Um, and I remember all the flack about the gender swap on Starbuck,
Yes.
but she owned that character.
Yeah.
Not only did she own the character, she got full approval from Dirk Benedict to do it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. You guys know the story. Some people watching may not, but when she told her dad, I'm Starbuck, dad was like, what? She said, yeah, I'm Starbuck. Yeah, you better go watch the series, sweetheart. Dad knew. He's like, you're Starbuck? You better find out what's going on. It's a wonderful story about that. And she told that story at the Paley Festival. I did not know this. I mean, I always thought there was an issue with the tattoos, but Katie has 3 tattoos. First, she has a crucifix tattoo on her left shoulder blade. As Christian has not practiced in the Battlestar Galactic universe, it is covered up by the show by bandages. I remember that. In scenes where her skin is exposed, her scene with Anders at the beginning of the farm, for example, and since unfinished business has been inked over with the large stepped pyramid. She also has the tattoo of a Chinese character for her choice on the back of her neck. In season 1, they usually try to avoid using camera shots that caught her at that angle, but observant viewers will still notice it. Her hair was longer in season 2, but when tied in a ponytail, it was nonetheless visible. And her third tattoo is on the inner side of her right forearm, just below the elbow. It consists of the words Bona Fiscalia, which is Latin for public property. Oh, wow. Katie, didn't know that one. This tattoo is visible in numerous episodes. At the beginning of the show, they try to avoid showing it, for example, by having her tuck her arm slightly behind her back in a wide shot. I remember that. It is still visible on many occasions, and over time, they gave up trying to hide it. That is funny. That is really cool. It was the movie was Stand and Deliver by Edward James Olmos when he plays the teacher of Jaime Escalante. Then you had Jamie Bamber as Lee Apollo Adama. So yeah, he presently slated to star in the United Kingdom's version of Law and Order and Law and Order UK, and he's done a few things. I think he did like a colonial program or something right after Battlestar Galactica. James Callis as Gaius Boltar. Wow, wow, what a character! Everything he had a chance to do. Then we had Trisha Helfer as number 6. She was modeling. She was born in Donalda, Alberta, Canada. And wow, she's 5'10", man. That's tall.
Hmm.
She is tall. Yeah.
She was also on Lucifer recently. She played
That's right.
um,
What?
Lucifer's mom. Mother
Yeah,
Nature or whatever. I'm not really sure I can't remember exactly how they identified her, but she was
no,
Lucifer's mom. Yeah.
no wonder
I
when I watched it, I'm going, I know her. I know her. That made me figure it out.
Yep. I mean, she lost the platinum blonde for it, but I mean, she still had that
Yeah.
presence.
we had Grace Park, and this story was told at the Paley Festival, and I'm gonna have the punchline because no one knows of it. Park broke into a film with a small role in the Jet Li movie Romeo Must Die. In the years following, she appeared in episodes of The Outer Limits. I didn't know that one. Beyond Belief, Dark Angel, The Immortal, and Stargate SG-1. Following this, Grace Park was one of the last 2 finalists up for the role of Kara Starbuck Thrace, the other being Katie Sackhoff, who ultimately got the part. Well, it turns out that as they were being interviewed in the festival, Grace Park said she was going for Starbuck, and Kara Thrace said she was in line for Boomer. And they were both talking about this. Oh, I wanted to play you. And the other one said, well, I wanted to play you. And Baltar, the character, James Callis, was right in the middle of both of them. And he says, yeah, and I wanted to play with both of you. I thought that was the entire stadium, the entire theater
Interesting.
lost its mind. That was funny. Now,
I'm
of
sure
course,
Mrs. Callis appreciated that.
oh yeah. Park holds a degree in psychology and speaks English, Korean, some French, and Cantonese, and is currently improving her Spanish. And she starred in The Cleaner, The Border, and yet another reimagined series, Hawaii Five-O. That is kind of cool. And then we had Michael Hogan as Saul Ty, Aaron, Aaron Douglas. As you know, we did interview Aaron Douglas. Tamo Penniket, who is on the movie, or he's in the movie that we just interviewed our guests on at the 6 p.m. hour here on NDB Media. Candice McClure as Anastasia Duwala. Paul Campbell as Billy. I didn't know Billy's last name. Kekea. Wow, I didn't know that. Alessandro Giuliani as Felix Gaeta. Nikki Klein as Callie. Samuel Whitwer as Alex Crashdown Quartararo. Michael Trucco as Samuel Adams. As you know, the producers were Ronald D. Moore, who was developer, executive producer, and writer. David Icke was executive producer. Tony Graffia was co-executive producer, writer. Harvey Fran was producer, and Glenn A. Larson was consulting producer. And these are just the primary ones, folks, that were in it. And it was just absolutely unbelievable. Now, Greg, when you stepped away a little bit, we were kind of laughing prior to the final battle when Adama says, we're going to go for the Promar sector. He says, that's it. We're running. We lost. And then he says, Billy and Duwala over at the station. Yeah, I think you heard me. What were some of your thoughts on it? Because I really thought that was one of the the more real moments, and it was funny because of Saul Ty, the way he answered. He says, "You're gonna have to start having babies." And I think they
Well,
all looked over and he says, "Is that an order?"
well, I mean, to back up, when she kissed him in the corridor, their meeting was rather awkward, because he like kind of like barged into like one of the shower rooms,
In
and
or out?
yep, and then she kissed him in the corridor, and
Yeah.
it was like one of those, it's like you know, how do you present a life is short attitude,
Yeah.
and to me that was like one of those things that presented that life is short attitude. And both of those characters had great development through the series. um but yeah, that was a charming scene. Ty's reaction was kind of funny. um
Is that an order?
and
I'm sorry.
to see Adama, I know you guys were talking about it because I still had the headset on, but to see you guys, to see Adama realize what Laura was getting at was, powerful. Um, and again, this was, I mean, so much more emotion, so much more grit and realism, rather than reality, realism in these characters than the original. Um, and it's like, I just can't say this enough. This show still stands up today, for its storytelling, for its cinematics. CG is still quality. It does not look plasticky at all. Um, it was probably one of the first, cinematic CGs that's, was beginning to stand up on its own. And there was just so much to love about all of those aspects of it that, when the series did finally air, it's like, yeah, I really want to like the show.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is you're kind of in the same mind frame, shall we say, about not certain whether you'll like it or not till it starts to air. I'm not sure if you guys realize this or not, but Edward James almost didn't want to do the script at all. He didn't
Yep.
want to do it because
This is about a
it's like,
comment.
I don't want it to be so fun, be so campy like the original. And granted, it was a little bit campy, the original. I mean, don't get me wrong. But this one
It was
is
pretty
much more
campy.
hardcore and dead on serious, and
Yeah.
Do you know what his two
I
rules
don't,
were?
I'm trying to
No.
remember. I've heard them.
Okay. One was whenever we see Adama, he has to be eating noodles. Okay.
Oh my
Now,
God, is that
remember that?
why?
Isn't he always eating noodles in the
Yes,
series?
he is. Oh
Okay.
God, yes.
And the other rule he said, no aliens of the week.
Yeah, right. I was going to mention that because that kind of ties in with something with another series that we do, which is the Ark. That
Yes.
was kind of, Dean Devlin's whole thing of, we're keeping it human. This is all human. We're not going to have, any weird aliens popping out. And I remember after Dean said that, gee, didn't Edward James almost have kind of the same rule? It's like this is humans trying to find the lost colony and survive. They don't want, some sort of weird alien popping out.
Yeah, the original didn't have that many different aliens. They had a few, but they didn't really. I mean, and most of them were in just the first movie.
Oh my goodness, that's right. The vast majority were in the 3 hour. Yeah.
Yeah, because weren't they in that one planet that was like a gambling planet?
Yep,
Yeah.
Weren't there aliens there? Yeah.
yep.
Why
Yeah.
can't I think of
So,
the planet now?
but
But
they
yeah.
they really didn't do diversity in the universe as like Star Trek does. And there's a lot of shows that can be science fiction without aliens. Um, the Dune films. In the entire saga, there are no aliens. Everybody in the universe is human. From a diaspora, after the Earth is gone.
Yeah.
So it's, it is possible. I mean, even in the Expanse, you didn't really get to see the aliens or understand what the aliens were. You kind of got like, the legacy of the aliens in the Expanse. So I mean, it is possible to do sci-fi without the aliens. Sorry, I keep leaning off camera here.
No, you're good, brother.
Oh,
You're
that's
good.
okay.
The yeah, we were talking about Laura a little bit when I had to step away.
Mhm.
I wanted to back up to one of the earlier scenes where
Yeah.
I think it was Doral was challenging that she was, running the show. And then later complains to Lee about it. Lee comes up to see what's going on, and then goes back to Doral and says, "Ladies in charge." Um,
Yeah.
to take somebody who's like just found out she's had cancer, just finds out, how low she is in the line of succession, that she's now the president of the colonies,
Wasn't she
as
like
they are.
40, 42, something like that? Down?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
right. She was in the 40s. Yes. And she
it,
knew the name of everyone above her.
Above her.
yes,
Yep.
Yeah. And it was President Adar. And President Adar was also in the original series.
Correct.
right, but
But
they
we only
didn't
saw him.
have, the character, of the president. Oh no, I've got hiccups. They didn't have the character of the president that was in the original either. They didn't. Everybody got wiped out on the Atlantia,
Yeah.
which was
Wasn't it President Adar on the original, though,
Yes,
that
he was.
asked
yeah,
Yeah.
Adama? But no, but I'm saying he asked Adama right after Zach was killed, what was that? And Adama answered him, that was my son.
Yeah.
Wasn't
hmm
that? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
But
I
the
think what Greg.
Atlantia was then destroyed, and they never had somebody succeed him as president.
Right. Forgive me. And
Right.
that's how I took it when Greg said that character did not exist in the reimagining. And that's the office of the president.
Right.
That's the way I
Okay.
took it, Greg, because we did. Adar existed, and it was cool. Didn't we see a scene of Adar later?
Yeah, there was several flashbacks later. Yes.
Yeah, and the character who played Adar, I was like, oh, I know that guy. He was in the Sum of All Fears and quite a bit of other stuff. But anyway, yes, um, I did love that scene too, where he says, "Ladies in charge," and then there's a moment later where Apollo tells him, um, "Madam President, my real name is Leah Dama." She goes, "Yes, I know who you are, but I like Starbucks." Or no, oh darn it.
Apollo,
I'm sorry.
Captain
Yeah.
Apollo.
God.
But I like Apollo. It has a better, nicer ring to it, doesn't it? I appreciated that. That was so cool.
I
And
actually got the impression she was flirting with him a little bit.
Really?
oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah,
did
she
not.
seemed, it's like, maybe not flirting is the right word, but ingratiating herself on him.
It could have been. Now that, and she might have been a little flirty because hey, folks, people flirt not for more romantic reasons. People do flirt. And it's just yeah. So please keep that in
I could
mind.
see that.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about that, Greg. I'm gonna have to take one more shot at that one and take a look at it. I, but yes, she was trying to ingratiate herself, and I loved right after that they're all recovering after he fired off the generators. I love her line. I'm trying to remember it right now, where she says, "That's how we kick their asses" or whatever.
Yep.
We got something on them, which they never revisited later, but that's okay. I thought they were all dead. I genuinely did. And when the miniseries opens up in part 2, and Adama's in tears, or well, he's not in tears, but his son is dead. So
Pretty choked up.
yeah, it was really well done, and there was just a lot to like in the series. Doral, remember the joke later in the series? but I'm wearing a different color in my pantsuit. Remember? I love that. That might have been in the plan, but that guy is so inept. Uh, I did like the scene after Adama took on Leoben, and he's telling Ty when the medic is treating him in a little odd way where he has the Q-tips out in the way that he was holding him. I thought that was kind of cool the way he was doing it. He had his own flair and touch how he was treating Adama. And when he tells Ty, they look like us. And Ty, he's already in war mode now. He's like, well, okay. And then somehow they have that conversation about we can't let this out, can't let people know. And I think it was Ty that said, yeah, we don't need people to accuse others of being the Cylon just because they don't brush their teeth or something. Remember? Something along
Oh,
those
I
lines
know.
because they're just acting
Mean,
differently.
yeah. Meanwhile, Adama has already figured it out, and he's already relating stuff.
Yes. And I I appreciated the fact that our characters are obviously overwhelmed because it's the end of the world. I think that's what Starbuck tells Lee. It's the end of the world, Lee. I thought I should confess my sins. That sucked.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
did suck, but it added to the world building that I know, Greg, you and I were talking about that in another series. It just adds to it. And
Yes.
when you look at it after, you're like, okay, yes, the mini series, Greg, I equated it to the Phantom Menace, insofar as the Phantom Menace from Star Wars suffers from the weight of what came before it and what will come. It exists because we know where we're going. It has to start somewhere. It's not always the best, but in this, I get it. The mini series, the reason why I like it, folks, it's a guilty pleasure. You all know I have a TV right here in the office, and I play in the background, and it runs for like 4 hours. That's why I love the miniseries. That's why I love the Lord of the Rings because I don't have to change the movies as much. So it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but I do appreciate the series for what it is. I thought it was good. I had no idea it was going to lead to a series, and everything that happens in it. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me finish this thought before I go back to you guys again. They're overwhelmed, but our characters are far from stupid. They're competent, they're capable, they're real, they're flawed. We talked about it. And it lent an air of authenticity to it. And I think that's what kind of attracted me. Because the original series, these characters were flawless. They're real. And I did
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well,
Greg?
I mean, it's like Star Trek. I mean, the
Yeah.
times that we're in when they're produced. Um,
Yeah.
so you had Battlestar Galactica came out to try to capitalize on the popularity of sci-fi following Star Wars.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you had you know they wanted those idealized heroes, the perfect relationships. But at the same time, they did kind of, they kind of made it a little gritty. We knew, right away, we knew that, colonies were decimated. There was people starving on transports while the elitists were hoarding food, and, things like that. What we'll talk about.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, it wasn't perfect, but you know, to go back and rewatch it, it seems dated as a product of its time. Um, Surprisingly, I don't think the reimagined series has that same feeling. Starting to rewatch it these last couple months.
Yeah.
I
I've
think
been
the
putting it
things
off.
that they're up against are very, very real to this day. You know, between Ukraine and Israel and Gaza, and it's just, you know, It's still very real and still very relevant.
This miniseries set the tone for what was to come, and there are moments where our jaws did drop. Rolling Stone hit the mark when they said, "This is the best show that you're not watching." There were moments. I had the privilege of interviewing other people, and I'm going to reach out to them and see if we can get them again. But later on, a tiny bit of a tease, we interviewed Rosalind's political assistant. I forget her name right now, the Indian lady. Um, I apologize. I don't remember her name right now, but we interviewed her,
Oh, the played
and
Tori Foster's.
there it is. Yes, thank you. She
I'll
shared
get the
with us.
actress's name.
Yeah, and I'm saddened because I follow her on Facebook, and we were friends on Facebook, but she had to cut our friendship. She changed her friendship thing where she made it a public page when she came out on Discovery. So
Mm.
she had it because that was changing universes and she was going to be inundated. And I got that. It was no problem. I held no, I think, 'cause she was cool. She was cool to speak to, and if I reach out to her, I think she would say yes. But at the end of Exodus, there's a scene where she's talking about something in particular. I think you all remember. She told us that that scene was actually in another episode, but these guys were so sharp on their storytelling, they changed it up a little bit. And I'll talk Rekha Sharma. Yes, thank you. Greg. And I appreciated having the privilege of speaking to her and on this as well. We spoke to Aaron Douglas. I'm going to reach out to Aaron Douglas. Maybe they'll be able to join us as well. And we're going to reach out to quite a few other people and see if we can have them on with us again. But having their insight was awesome. Rekha Sharma shared so much about the background of her character, what she was told it was going to be, how she didn't realize that they hinted what she was, and even she didn't get it. They were that far ahead on some of the stuff, but then they messed up on other stuff. Ronald D. Moore said he messed up on the numbers. Remember that Sharon is 8. They messed up. 'Cause remember, there's one that failed, and that turned out to be Daniel, I believe it is, which ended up being number 7. But the way they were doing the numbering scheme, they messed up, and it was kind of cool that they admitted it. But I don't think anyone really noticed it.
I was
But
just reading recently too that it's possible that when they did Caprica, they kind of like backfitted that Daniel might have been Daniel Greystone, who was the inventor.
isn't it
Good point.
interesting? Yes, yes, they.
So they kind of back retconned. Is that, yeah? I guess that's retcon.
Yeah, retcon would be the word. Yeah.
Who Daniel might have been.
Without jumping very, very far ahead, were you guys watching Caprica? I was.
I
I
was. I was
was.
disappointed that it didn't go further.
When and my daughter, my youngest, my road warrior was watching it, and there was I don't know if it was episode 5 or 6 when they used the word. She didn't know what Daniel Greystone was building. She had no idea. And when he named it, my daughter froze and she's like, "Oh, it was like, yeah, we're building our own Terminators." So I thought I my daughter saw the whole series through with me. I was thrilled. And it was fun having that experience as well. And knowing what is coming forward, folks, I think is absolutely beautiful. Ron D. Moore did say that he was so unhappy with the little girl that was on the Agra ship that didn't make it. Because remember, Billy tells her, "No, that little girl that you met, that ship does not have FTL."
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
But here's the thing. It was a horrible scene, but it was necessary.
yes.
No.
Now, here's the thing without trying to dilute that. Ronald Moore lost his baggage when she said, "Yeah, I'm going to be going home to Caprica with my family and have some chicken pot pie." He says, "Oh,
I
come
know.
on! I didn't want to have anything Earth related, and now we have chickens in the universe." It was really funny. I guess it went through and he didn't know it. and he lost
Well,
his.
we have noodles and sushi.
But they didn't say noodles and they didn't say sushi.
Okay, okay,
Think
okay.
about that. And in the series,
True.
when they said chicken, he lost his baggage. Well, that's the phrase I'm going to be using. He lost his baggage.
Now,
So,
one of the things I don't remember, when the show aired,
yeah.
I didn't remember the inclusion of Boxy. But then when I saw it on DVD,
Yeah.
it's like, wait a second. Did they edit out or exclude the scenes with Boxy when they originally aired the show because
No.
he didn't become a regular on the
Mm-mm.
show?
What happened was Boxy, like, puberty hit.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that little kid because he was supposed to be part of the family unit. Um, Here we go. Athena didn't seem to serve any function in the original show other than look beautiful and be a love interest for Starbuck. So I just got rid of that character. And while I thought Boxy was part of the family and decided it would be nice to include him in some peripheral way, I never considered keeping Boxy's dog for a second. The dog was just absurd. It was right out from that moment I took the show, he said. But in some commentary, he does talk about, and I'll have to find it again, where he says that he expected him to be part of the family. And I forget which two characters. It might have been Sharon and Chief. I read it somewhere that he was going to be part of it, but he, dude, he puberty hit, and I guess he gained like 7 or 8 inches. He wasn't a young kid anymore. But he is in the miniseries, and
Yeah.
he is a little bit later in like an episode or two, and then that was it.
You
So
know what I
yeah,
thought was
but I
funny
don't
with that
remember.
character?
I don't remember those scenes. Like the scene with him being, maybe the scene where he was on the raptor with Sharon,
Yeah.
but there's like a scene where they said, we got to get him quarters. I never remembered seeing that until I saw it on DVD, and there was a third or fourth scene towards the end that he was in that I looked like it might have been cut when they originally aired it.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look back and see because I genuinely remember
I
the
meant
way
to
it
look
did
that
happen.
up today.
Yeah.
Work got too busy.
Yeah, you're telling me. So, um, I did appreciate the entire thing. Oh, they also got rid of like year, not Yaren, and they did get rid of some stuff where the microns, Yarens, they did get rid of some of that language, which I could do without. I was expecting them to say it, but they never did.
They
You know,
never said Feldercarb, did they? For crap.
I was just going to say that. Literally, I
actually,
started
they
to say that.
did.
Oh,
They
okay. Because I
did
remember
say
they used
Felgercarp.
When?
crack a lot, but
Do
I
you
never
remember
remember.
when and how they said Felgercarp?
Oh,
No,
When
I
they were
don't. I was
in
like,
the
well,
final 10 episode run and they knew Galactic was coming to an end. While the
okay.
series was being done, they knew it was done. So every week they were offering something from the series that was on screen. And remember when Starbuck tells everyone, I'm offering up the last known tube of toothpaste in the
Face.
universe?
Yeah.
Felgercarb. Yes, look it up again. The toothpaste
all
is
right.
Felgercarb.
God.
So after the episode, it was announced that is this week's piece that they're going to be auctioning off. I thought that was cool. So they worked in Felgercarp and it was screen used, which was kind of neat. That's
That's
not when you said that
funny.
right now. No, 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 no. It was just one moment they used it. Yes, look, they did get out of hand with Mother Fracker and all that. Some of it was funny when you think about it, but oh, yeah, it was frack. They got away with using that language, which hey, well, whatever. It got out of hand.
I'm going back through my notes here. Some of the things that I don't think we got to talk about in the final battle. Again, for me, it's all about spaceships. Starbuck catches Lee's wing like going backwards.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that scissor
and
move was like to
and
die
like
for.
to get him back to the Galactica, and then landing. And again, I mean, it's the way they did the CG cinematic was amazing. Cause I mean, you could almost imagine like a deck camera watching that landing coming in. Um, let's-
If you guys look at the scene again very carefully, she puts the nose into the cannon, Lee's
yeah,
cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like boom. I was like, oh, are you insane?
that was amazing.
I mean,
Um,
Apollo's losing his mind.
oh,
Oh my
and this
god.
was a cool thing. Now I don't know if I commented at the top of the show, but tonight, but they, the tech looked really good. I mean, it honored the original series, but it was like updated. Um, Liz, I know you have Navy experience. I mean, it looked like a ship. I was actually working in shipbuilding at the time, and it looked like a ship. Um, they had the airlock doors, with the crank wheels and everything, and it's just absolutely amazing how everything looked. But the hyperspace thing, the the launch bays and landing bays would retract into the ship. I thought that
Yeah.
was really neat, and I remember thinking,
Yeah.
"Gee, I wonder what that would look like on the original series." But what was funny was in the very first jump effect, the shot of the Galactica, the launch bays were out.
Oh, and yes, very good. And from the very famous scene in Exodus. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay.
Yep.
I forgive them for that. But you're so right. In the
Okay.
very first jump, their launch bays are, yeah, they're still out. Go,
Yeah.
Liz.
I was actually, this actually refers to something, you and I are both like major history buffs. There's one thing that I caught in
So's Greg. Have
the
no illusion, Liz. You just haven't spent time with
okay,
Greg. This man knows
okay.
quite a bit of history. And as a matter of fact, folks, forgive me. I know history. And yet I acknowledge that there's a lot of stuff that Greg knows that I don't know, and I'd like to believe that there's stuff that I know that Greg doesn't. But when it comes to Latin and when it comes to obscure references, both historical and biblical, I think we could give each
Yeah.
other a
See,
run for.
I like the ancient,
Yes,
stuff, and he's
I've
the
referenced some things, and Greg's like, no, Ron. And he has no, seriously, and I appreciate that. I respect that. I'm jealous of him in that he has caught when I've twisted an interpretation or meaning. He's like, I don't think so. And I appreciate that he has a where you know what I'm talking about, Greg. We've had that
oh yeah,
where
yeah.
yeah. And I think it's great. All I can say is that Greg doesn't correct me all that often. That I'm happy about. We have a love of that history. I just want to make that clear to you, Liz. The three of us, when it comes to history, we will bore the holy living you know what out of the universe.
Oh
So
God.
anyway, I meant that in a good way,
But
folks.
actually, but actually, knowing that Greg has that kind of background and also
Oh
knowing that
yeah.
he's a huge techie, this might actually be better for him. Does anybody notice when the first scenes opened, and the intercoms and things were being used? Did anybody notice exactly what that telephone headset was on the bridge? I saw that and my jaw dropped.
I'm trying to remember.
You mean the one MC? Or are you talking
The
about the one that
TA1,
was in his quarters, those?
those, the
Oh,
TA1s.
okay. Okay, those. No, what are they? Walkie-talkies? What are
They're actually telephone headsets from the U.S. Army field issue telephones from Korea.
I did not know. All right.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, you got me on that one, man.
God,
Um,
the old crank up for power
Yeah.
one.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, so I saw those. I'm like, oh, how freakingly cool you guys did that.
There
That
was a
is cool.
lot of like the whole idea of the computers not being networked and stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was like current, like the flat screens, but there was also stuff like the old phone sets, and that was really good too.
Well, she was supposed to be 50-year-old decommissioned, museum. So,
She was about to
Right.
be. She was a 50-year-old relic on the verge of being decommissioned. Yeah, she was going to be a
yeah,
library, or sorry, museum piece. Yep.
Museum,
a museum piece.
and,
Yeah.
and the whole
Kind of
starboard
reminds
deck
you of
was
anything else, Pearl?
Arizona.
No.
Enterprise,
Mighty Mo.
the
Mighty
Mighty
Mo.
Mo.
Oh,
Okay.
I
Oh,
forgot that was there.
yeah.
So
Okay.
we've got the few on the East Coast too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have the Iowa here, which I was going to be a volunteer, but physically I can no longer be. I've taken off the Iowa cap, as you know. I just physically cannot do it. And we have the Mighty Mo over in Hawaii. I hope to be able to see that one. I think they did get it right. As much as I wanted the Mighty Mo here in Los Angeles, if you think about it, Arizona, where it started
Yep.
and where it ended, there's symmetry there. I get it. I understand why Mighty Mo went out. I'm okay with the Iowa, but anyway, April 19th.
We got the
April 19th.
Nautilus in Groton, Connecticut.
Yeah, I would love to see that one of these days. Heck yeah.
The Constitution's in Boston.
Oh, and
I've always wanted to see her.
folks, switching to real, we're talking real. Forgive me. I am so saddened that CVN 65, she's done.
Oh yeah.
She is going to be sent to the scrapyard for several reasons. Number one, there's too much nuclear stuff
Yeah.
on her. She's radiated, and it's going to take a long time to get rid of her. And I just think it's ignominious or ignominious. It's a sad end for.
Ignomous? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad end for a proud that led us in times of darkness and implemented state policy for a long time. I'm just saddened that the Enterprise is going to be sold for scrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not only what she is in real history, in our real history, but the name of Enterprise that has gone on to be in the hearts of so many other people for other reasons, or, like Star Trek and other things. It all starts with real history.
Hmm. Well,
Well,
remember
and
it
that's
was.
also the second carrier to bear the name too.
Yeah, and
Correct.
remember, Star Trek originally had the Yorktown. It was the Yorktown,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Yep.
switched names. Yeah, the Enterprise. It's not the. I think there's 5 or 6 ships in the United States Navy that has had the name Enterprise, but carrier, yeah, it's the second one, and the third one, I think it's already. I think it's CVN 80 is going to be the Enterprise. So, folks, I'm telling you, they messed up. CVN 79 should have been the Enterprise for the
I
original
agree.
79 episodes. I'm like, where were we? This is a once in a forever chance, and they blew it. So anyway, folks, we are nearing the end. I don't want to make my co-host suffer anymore. We're gonna be speaking off air. We're gonna set up the time to have a meeting so we can go over the next one that we're gonna do. I believe we are in general agreement that we're now gonna go back and watch from the beginning Battlestar Galactica, but we're gonna ask you to bear with us because we need to come to a good time, an early time for everyone involved. It's not fair to Greg. It's Friday on the East Coast, and
Yeah.
we may actually even pre-record these. I don't know, but we're going to be talking about that. But we love the live audience. We appreciate the comments, and we'll see. But this is our first look at Battlestar Galactica. It is on the anniversary. We did the miniseries. We're going to come back to this one. But for now, this is what got us going. And I do know that um, we're going to be doing, Battleship Cove. What is that? Tell me, Greg, what is that?
So in Fall River, Massachusetts, on the Rhode Island border, um,
Is that a
there's
German
the
battleship?
War College Maritime Museum, and there's also Battleship Cove. And if you click on that link, you'll see an image of the ships that we have up here in New England.
Wow. I didn't know of that.
Yep. So off the top of
The
my head,
USS
I do know.
Massachusetts is there.
Yep.
Wow. That
But
is
World War
cool.
II vessels. Yep.
Battleship Cove. I'll have to talk about that in the future. Wow. I know
It's
that
pretty
ship,
cool.
USS Massachusetts. Wow. The Joseph
Yeah,
P.
excuse
Kennedy
me,
is
I'm
there.
itchy.
No, no, it's all good. All right. Well, folks, again, I keep
You're itchy, I'm scratchy.
some, that's funny. I am so eternally grateful to these two, Admiral Greg and Liz. We're going to be doing this. We ask you to bear with us as we determine when we're going to be on next. It's going to be at a reasonable hour, and we're hoping to have more imagery as we're talking about this, and that's where I failed, and I'm sorry for that. But we're just going to move on. It is the conversation that we have about our memories. That was a great first question, Greg. Looking back and remembering, that was really good. I appreciate that. Last thoughts before we go. We got about another 3 to 4 minutes. Liz.
The only last thought is one thing that I kind of wanted to mention as well is what at this point with the prisoners. We have a prisoner ship. Do we take them with us? Do we leave them behind? We're short on fuel, food, all sorts of resources.
Yeah.
I'll leave
One,
you pondering on that thought.
one of her first
Yeah,
orders, where she says, "Oh no, no, we're not going to have any mysterious deaths all of a sudden."
yeah. And Laura was like, that she gave the, we're not going to lose our humanity. These are people too. And,
True.
it became a major part of her character, of her compassion, um, and they made use of it too.
Yeah.
We got some pretty good drama out of the fact that that prison ship was still with the fleet,
Yeah.
and so yeah, no, that's definitely something to think about when we get to that episode of the implications of the security of the fleet and the role of those people in the fleet.
Exactly.
In addition to that, remember the very end of the episode, we find out there's someone else who is a Cylon. Good old number
Yes.
8.
Oh, there was a couple of really good homages. That homage, however, was pretty awkward. Adama's monologue at the end, really good. Harken back to Adama's monologue in the original. The
That was
nod to
all
the
ad
original.
libbed.
It was
Yeah,
Yes.
the first time it was, yes.
awesome. The nod to the original theme as kind of like military fanfare, I thought
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yes.
When they had the flyby during the original, like when they were dedicating the museum and announcing the decommissioning.
Yeah.
But yeah, that last scene, we find out the first covert Cylon model is Boomer, and we get that really awkward by your command from 6 at the end. It was kind of like they almost tacked it on.
It felt like it was, yes, it did in every which way. It did. But
But that
that
was
became
cool.
the money line a little bit later when we finally heard it from the old Cylons. By your command. I know Ronald D. That's the money line! Because I did listen to all of his voiceovers for each episode. Remember when they were all recording? Because the Lord
I
of the
haven't.
Rings?
I I never did that. I never did that
Oh,
with Battlestar
dude.
Galactica.
If you
I'll
have
have
the
to do that
DVDs,
for when we do the series. When we do the series,
yes. Yeah, it's good stuff. If you have the DVDs, it's on there, the soundtrack, and he was really good at it. So,
I think the only ones I've done that for are like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
yep, me too. And I listened to each and every one of them too. That's how sad it was. So, because remember, Lord of the Rings has, I think, 3 different soundtracks.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
three different levels of commentary. There's the
Yeah.
actors. There's um, Peter Jackson, and I can't remember the other guy's name that's on there with him.
Oh,
And then
it's Philippa Boyens. She's the other writer. She's on there, and I forget who else because his wife is Nip. Was she on there? I forget if she
God,
was.
it's been so long
Yeah,
since I
it's been a
listened to the
while. Yes.
commentary.
Well, folks, again, we ask you to
Oh,
bear with us. We ask everyone who shared this episode. We are eternally
top of
grateful.
the hour. Good
Yes,
morning.
I know.
Good
I was trying to finish.
morning, New England.
Yeah, I was trying to finish before midnight, and I'm sorry, Greg. So I don't want to go that late anymore because it's unfair to Greg. But um, we're gonna see when we're gonna do it. We'd love to hear your ideas, but we ask you to bear with us. This is something that we want to do. It's a long range project. We'll be doing multiple episodes per episode, and there are times that we're gonna spend probably an entire episode on one. I don't think that's gonna happen all, but we'll play it by ear and we'll see. I know we're going to be using the Battlestar Wiki clone.org. We thank you. There's an incredible amount of information there, and we want to give a shout out to them right now. And
And all its contributors.
yes, and they have quite a bit of stuff on there on every series and stuff. So we'll see. But all right, what a way to kick off the series. Let me tell you, um, looking back, it was a good start. Wasn't for everyone. It was in the shadow of horrid, horrid events in the history of this nation and for many people around the world. And a lot of people had trouble with it, watching it, because it reminded them of those events. And this series was born, well, at least this reimagining, the hard edge of it was born on that day. And we know when it was made. So, but all right, that's going to be it. I'm Roger. That's Greg. That's Liz. And we'll see you guys. And I think we're done for today. So say we all.
So say we all.
So say we all.
All right.